Okay. Hey everybody, we're going to get started. It's just about 2 o'clock here. Thanks for joining us today. If you've been to our webinars before, we're kind of the same format, but with some extras today. So that'll be fun to do something live demo for you guys. My name is Jenny Novak and I'm the marketing manager here and I coordinate the webinars and also do a few other things along with a website and such. Welcome back if you've joined us for webinars in the past and thank you for being here if it's your first one. Just a quick intro about us. Dyne is an independent testing laboratory. We've been doing firefighting foam for over 25 years. We also do dry chemical agents, sprinklers, and antifreeze. In 2023, we acquired the Dropmaster and moved the manufacturing here to Minnesota. The original owner still works with us as a consultant and a resource. So we have his knowledge available to all of us. Just this month, we launched the new Dropmaster, the DM25. It's a stainless steel model. That's what we're going to be talking about today. We're always asked if we're certified or accredited. We are. Dyne is ISO 9001 and also has a 17025 accreditation from A2LA for our automatic field sprinkler testing. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can type them into the control panel, either the chat or the Q&A. We'll probably save those up and get to them all at the end, but feel free to type them along the way as you think of them. Stay until the end of the webinar to receive a certificate of attendance. I know some people out there are using our certificates for NISAC credits. I do email those either later today or tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that in your email box. The webinar is also recorded and you will receive a link to the video. We publish it on the Dyne YouTube channel. Today's webinar, Dropmaster DM25, will be presented by Grant Lobdell. He's the president at Dyne and has an extensive knowledge of firefighting foam, sprinklers, dry chemical agent, and antifreeze, as well as NFPA 25 requirements. I'm going to turn it over to Grant now to show us all about the DM25.
Is it going?
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for that intro. As Jenny mentioned, today we're going to be talking about the Dropmaster DM25. Just the Dropmaster in general. I don't know how many of you are familiar, how many of you have used the Dropmaster before, but we're going to really take a step back and start there, and then we can hit on the Dropmaster DM25 and really get into some specifics about the machine. So for those not familiar, what is the Dropmaster and why does it exist? Well, the Dropmaster is a vacuum system that'll help remove residual water from your drops. It'll also help remove odor from the system as well. Why would you want that? Let's talk about what happens if you don't have a Dropmaster. Maybe many of you are listening and you don't have one and you're still doing it this way. You drain your mains, and then when you go to pull the sprinkler, all this water is going to come out on you, right? It's not going to look this nice. I got some nice, clear food coloring water going on here. It's going to get all over you. Maybe use buckets or tarps, maybe use a dumpster, a sock maybe to try to capture it. Every few drops, now maybe you filled your bucket, now you got to go all the way outside and dump it out. To avoid all that hassle, that is why the Dropmaster was invented and why it exists. So instead of all that, when you drain your system, you're going to connect the Dropmaster, put the system under a vacuum, and then go pull your sprinkler. So that's where the Dropmaster fits into that process, into that step. So in a moment here, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to demo it for you a few times. Before I do that, let me talk about it just in general. Again, you're going to drain your system like normal. Then you're going to connect the suction side of the unit to the main drain ideally. The auxiliary drain, any drain would work, but I say the main because typically that's the biggest drain. That's going to get you the most airflow. You're going to put your discharge side into a storm sewer, or if you need to collect it into a tote or wherever you need that water to go, and you're going to turn it on. Now, it depends on the size of your system. A small system in our just building here, maybe 5-10 minutes, it'll get all that air sucked out. It'll be under a vacuum. Maybe a larger system takes longer, maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes. But it can do any size system. The only difference, the bigger the system, the longer it takes to get there. But once there, it's actually more stable. So in my demo here, you're going to see me turn the unit on, and pretty quickly I'm going to get 10 inches of vacuum where I want to be because it is such a small system. Then I will go and I will pull this sprinkler, and you'll be amazed, hopefully, that I'm not going to have any water, no residue come out. I'm going to pull it, and we always say, if you don't feel it, you don't hear it, you don't do it. So we tell the guys, when you're in the field and you're pulling the sprinkler, you want to hear that hiss of air going by it. You want to feel that suction pulling up against it. If I have both those, I feel comfortable. I'm going to pull that head off. And again, the air going in is what's going to carry the water with it. A lot of people they think when you turn on the Dropmaster, it just sucks all the water out the drops. That's not exactly how it works. You have to have the airflow. So you have to pull a sprinkler and have the airflow carry the water with it. So the water gets sucked out when you pull that sprinkler, which is true. Again, some guys will use the system to dry the mains or branch lines. You can pull a far sprinkler, so connect this to your main drain, go as far as you can from it, pull that sprinkler. That means that air from that sprinkler is going to go all the way through the system back to the unit. That's a way you can also use this for repairs on branch lines and mains where you want to make sure it's all cleared out. So let's give it a go. I'm going to turn the unit on. Pretty quickly, right there. I'm already intending to the vacuum again because my system is pretty small. So when I pull this sprinkler, already you can see I didn't tighten it that well before. It was already bubbling. You can already see if I loosened it there, I have water bubbling. I have air pulling that water with it. If I go all the way to the end here, I can even let go and it'll hold it there. So I hear the hip. And I can let it go. It's going to stay there, right? It's going to sit there. When you get to this point, we usually say to rock it a few times. Watch what happens when I rock it. So you can see. The water shoots up when you rock it. You pull it off at an angle, and then I have no water, no mess. Let me do it again for you. So I'm going to reconnect my sprinkler, and I'm just going to fill my drop here. So I've refilled my drop. Now I have my system back under vacuum. Again, you can have a couple guys doing this. Just be smart. You don't want to leapfrog each other. Go on different branch lines. You say about 4 guys can go at once on this unit. So once you get to the end, rock it a few times, and then at an angle, pull it off. You're not going to have any mess, no water, no smell. All that water is going to be captured inside the Dropmaster. And as that fills, it's going to be discharged wherever you need it to go. So what I wanted to do next, now that you've actually seen the demo, and again, if you're in AFSA in the Washington, D.C. area, the next few days, we'll actually be presenting there with this demo as well. You may have seen us at other trade shows. Come on out. Whenever you see us at a trade show, you can try this demo as well. It's actually very difficult for the machine to do this demo versus the system because of how small it is. It gets there to vacuum very quickly, but it also loses its vacuum very quickly as well. So I'm going to go over to my other rig here, and we'll really get up close and see kind of the different features of the unit. All right, so now I'm looking up close at the unit, and this is how, if you purchase one, what you would get. On here are 2 20-foot hoses, and let's start there. Let's start with how we connect the unit to the system. So again, I have 20 foot of suction and discharge line. These hoses, both on the suction and discharge sides, are interchangeable. They're 1-inch non-collapsible hoses, so they're reinforced. They need to be strong for that vacuum. We put 1-inch cam lock fittings on this. We also provide you at the end with an adapter that converts cam lock to NPT. We give you a 1-inch NPT adapter if your drain, which hopefully it's larger than that, is not 1 inch. You will need to provide the adapters yourself. I trust many of you probably have a lot of those adapters in your trucks already. So you would take this hose and you would connect it to, like I said, ideally your main drain. The bigger the drain, the better, because that gets you more airflow. Can I do it off an auxiliary drain? Sure. Can I do it off a drop? You can. I've heard of it being done. Again, the drop, typically, we're going to have a lot smaller diameter. It's going to be a lot less airflow. That's just going to affect your suction power. So we talk about all the time, well, how big of a drop can it do? We say 10 foot all day long, right? No problem there. If you start getting into 20-foot drops, it gets to be a lot of water sitting above it, all right? Can it do it? I've heard of it being done. Again, there I would say go very slow. When I rocked it a few times at the end and I quickly pulled it off, I may want to rock it a few more times. And on a 20-foot drop, maybe I want to have a safety net. Maybe I want to have a bucket there just in case on the 20-foot drop. 10 foot, you don't need any of that, but just like any tool, there are limitations. We're going to connect this again to ideally the main drain, and we're going to connect it to the suction side in our unit. It's labeled as suction. If you ever forget, you can also see there is a strainer and a ball valve on it. So that's where your suction side goes in. This is where it's going to pull all that water from your system, the water and air. On it, there is a Y strainer. At the end here, I will go over some of the maintenance on this unit, and this is one of the pieces here. I said it's going to collect all that water and air from your system. That's not the only thing it's going to collect, as you guys know. It's going to collect all the different debris that's in there. I mean, I've seen all sorts of things. I've seen bird nests basically come out of this thing. This is to protect your unit, your Dropmaster invested here, right? So if I don't have this strainer, all that debris is going to actually go into the pump, and the pump's going to have to pump it out. Now the pump inside here can handle up to 1/2-inch solids, but it will wear and tear it, especially I've seen like the Teflon tape will wind up on the impeller inside that pump. So it's very important that we make sure this strainer is on there and make sure it's clean. If I get a call and go, hey Grant, the unit itself, when I close this ball valve, so that stops my suction right there, I'm getting to 10 inches of vacuum. Why am I not getting vacuum at my sprinkler? A lot of times there we're looking, okay, is there a blockage somewhere? This could be one place you could have a blockage. How often, when's the last time you cleaned this Y strainer? All right, so we're gonna connect, we're gonna just start. We're gonna walk through like we're connecting it to a system. We connect it to our main drain, we connect it here. On this side, again, I talked about, we have our hose, same thing, interchangeable. We provide you with 20 feet, 1-inch non-collapsible hose with those cam lock fittings, and one end has an MPT adapter as well. This is going to be connected to your discharge side. Let me turn this unit to that. And then it's up to you where you want to discharge it. So this is the discharge side again, labeled on the unit. We also have a check valve on the discharge side. The other side has the strainer, the discharge side has the check valve. Where do you want to go with it? Can you go into a storm sewer? That's what most guys are going to do, right? Out into the parking lot, down into a sewer. Maybe you're somewhere where you have to capture the water. Maybe it's antifreeze. Well, you could just take that 20-foot hose, put it up into a tote. It's up to you guys. But now we've connected our suction and discharge. Now we need to talk about power, right? So we just have the power here. We do have a GFCI connection on it. We recommend a 20 amps, so it's 120 volts here in the States, although we do make it, if any of our listeners are overseas, we make it in all sorts of voltages and frequencies. Want to plug that into, we recommend a 20 amp outlet here in the States. Will 15 work? Yeah, it'll work, but you got to make sure nothing else is on it. When I turn this unit on, it's going to feed my motor and my pump inside. Now the motor is always going to be continually going. That's moving my vacuum head. And let's look at that. If you can see this in this video, if some of you guys are using shop vacs, and just imagine the motor on top of that shop vac and what's running it compared to what we have here. This is why this giant unit here is why we say this is rated for continuous duty. You don't need to give it a break when you do. So this here, when you turn it on, is about 7 amps, 6, 7 amps. Same thing with the pump inside when it's discharging water. The pump is just going to kick on intermittently as it sucks water in and this fills up. The float inside there will tell it to kick on. So that gives us, again, about 12 to 13 amps that this unit could draw. So that's why we recommend a 20 amp outlet. But again, 15 will work if you're not going to have anything else going on that outlet, on that circuit. So we connect it to power. Again, I just went over that. You turn it on, it's going to feed the motor and the pump inside. Ideally, the pump's not going to kick on until it fills. The motor's going to kick on, it's going to turn your vacuum head. This is what creates our vacuum. We have our gauge here. This will be very important for you as you're running it. We even put right here, do not exceed 10 inches of vacuum. You ideally want to get close to there. The more vacuum, the more powerful it is, but you don't want to exceed it. There is a certain level, I believe it's close to 15 inches of vacuum, where you can actually suck out the groove couplings, the couplings inside them. So we have a safety factor there to make sure we're not even near that, all right? We do set this unit at the factory, and we set the relief valve behind this cage. We do not envision people going back there and being Tim the Tool Man more power and cranking it up. There's a reason why we set it at that level. We also have here for the vacuum, it does use a little bit of oil. That's what keeps it lubricated. The veins inside that are creating that vacuum need to move in and out. They need to create a nice seal. So a little bit of oil goes through the unit at all times. On here, there's a C-shaped sight glass. Let me see in my video if I can, maybe you can catch that a little bit there. Back here, there's the C-shaped sight glass. You want that oil about halfway full. You do not need to fill this reservoir all the way. Halfway full is what the manufacturer recommends, so just halfway up that C tubing there. That'll be more than enough. If you overfill it, will it damage the unit? No, you're just going to waste more oil than you need. It's going to pull in more than it needs to. Again, if you're using this unit, I'll talk about maintenance in a little bit. This will be one thing we're going to check as well. All right, let's go back to the beginning. We turned it on, we created our vacuum. It's going to go through the drum here, which as we're talking about today, all this you're seeing is stainless steel. If many of you, if you have a Dropmaster already, you probably have the DM12 or maybe even an older model. Nowadays, we make it all out of stainless for that improved longevity. It's less maintenance cost, less downtime. It's going to last you a lot longer. So it's going to go into this new stainless drum. The air and water is going to be sucked into here. The air is going to go through your vacuum. The water is going to go out your discharge side. Simple as that, right? You turn it on, it creates a vacuum, and everything that gets sucked in either gets sent out the muffler, the air, or it gets sent out with the discharge pump, which you can't see, but is inside there, okay? One thing on the back we haven't looked at yet is the muffler. I turned it on, and I hope my microphone up there did a good job at canceling out the noise. But it does not require hearing protection, even in a room like this where it's a smaller conference room. It is under that 80 decibel threshold. This muffler does that, but it also captures. I talked about the vacuum going through a little bit of oil at all times. That's going to be captured here, and we can drain that. So you're going to hear me in a moment talk about we need to drain this as one of our maintenance procedures. But that's it. That is the Dropmaster DM25. Again, now everything you see here, even the muffler is out of stainless. All the plumbing parts are out of stainless. Let's talk about maintenance now. Let's say, yeah, Grant, I'm interested. I want to use it. And you do start using it. And you find yourself, boy, I'm saving a lot of time. I love this thing. And I want to make sure it's going to last a long time. What maintenance do I need to do on something like this? There's really 4 key things, right? And I've touched on them briefly as I went through here. Number 1, we're going to check that Y strainer like I talked about, right? Make sure we don't have any blockage there. Get that cleaned out and replaced. That's number 1. Number 2, I talked about the oil in the reservoir, right? This vacuum pump's always using a little bit of oil that's going through it. We want to make sure half is full. That's good enough. Get a little bit of oil in there. It uses 10W30. If you forget, it's stickered right on the unit. That's number 2. Number 3, the back of the unit. Because it uses oil, we need to capture and get rid of it periodically. So we're going to drain that. We provide now on standard on all units ball valves for this, so no longer do you have to have a wrench and undo the plug. So we're going to drain that oil. What happens if you don't drain it? Well, if I don't drain it, it's eventually going to rise to the point where it's going to come out the air holes and you're just going to be spraying oil all over the place. That's what happens if you don't drain it. So that was the 3rd thing. The last thing, let's see if I can back my unit up a little bit. Might be able to see it down there. There is a ball valve on the bottom of the drum. We still recommend, even with the stainless drum, you drain the unit whenever it's not in use. So if you use this for the day and you're done, there's going to be a little bit of residual water. Even if the pump just kicked on, the pump always leaves a little bit. We say, hey, make sure you drain that before you transport it, before you move it anywhere, before you leave it. It was a bigger deal when it was a steel, the DM12, right? It was to help protect against corrosion. Now, even the DM12, when it was steel, we did a lot of plastic coat and other technologies to try to improve that resistance to corrosion. That is not necessarily the case with the stainless steel drum, but there are a few other reasons why we drain it. One, up here in Minnesota, we don't want that water to freeze and potentially damage the pump or other components, right? If this is going to be stored outside or transported outside in a cold environment, we want to make sure that's not an issue. We also, number 2, want to make sure that as it's going down the road, that water inside the drum is not sloshing back and forth. That can have enough force to dislodge the float on the pump inside here. All right, so that pump inside features a non-destructible float. So if it's sloshing, and that water can have enough force going down the road, especially if it's half full, that can have enough force to where it could damage the float. But we've implemented a non-destructible float. What that means, it won't break it, but it can dislodge it. That's how it is able to absorb the force and not break it. It'll just fall off. And then you have to take this apart, go in this drum, and put the float back on. So to avoid all that hassle, always drain it. So again, let me summarize the 4 maintenance steps if you buy one of these. You're going to check the Y strainer probably every day, maybe more frequently. Some of you guys might go out to systems that, boy, they're just chock full of debris. And you might have to check that a few times, right? You may clog up in the middle of the day. Well, how am I going to know if I'm out in the middle of the field? That's, again, why we say if you don't feel it, you don't hear it, you don't do it. So if you're pulling that sprinkler and all of a sudden you're like, I'm not hearing the normal hiss, it's not pulling against me, take a moment, go look at your unit, because you're going to park this wherever that drain is, wherever you reconnect it. And you're going to go throughout the whole building, not have to carry anything with you. But that would be a signal to you, hey, maybe my Y strainer's clogged. You're going to check the oil, and you're going to make sure you drain the oil. And the last thing, make sure you drain the drum. Lastly here, before we open it up for questions, and by all means, would love some questions. Let's talk about just some troubleshooting steps, right? So maybe you buy one, and maybe you've had one, you have some questions.
what can go wrong, right? I already talked about what if the Y strainer clogs, and what's the check there? Is I don't feel it, I don't hear it, I don't do it. Let's talk about you turn on the unit. We've had these kind of calls. They turn on the unit and it doesn't, nothing happens. Why would that be? First step is this motor. There is actually on the side here a thermal reset button. So this motor is protected. If all of a sudden it overheats, it will shut itself off to not kill itself, right? So after it cools back down, you can actually thermally, you can click this button and it'll reset the motor. You gotta wait for it to cool and you gotta push this button like you're pushing it right through. It takes a little bit of force to push it. Let's take a step back. Why did the motor overheat? Really, that kind of conversation goes back to power. We want to make sure we have good clean power. It's plugged into a 20 amp outlet. We don't want to use extension cords. If you absolutely must, and again, I provide you 20 feet on this. If you absolutely must use an extension cord, the gauge needs to be as thick or thicker than this cord. All right. If you try to use a thinner cord, that motor's it's not gonna get the power it needs. That motor's gonna have to work harder and it's gonna overheat. So that's typically the cause of, again, if I turn it, nothing happens. Common call we'll get could be, again, I turn the unit on, but I have no suction at my sprinkler. Why would that be the case? First thing I'll tell you, on that suction side, that ball valve, that's your friend. Close that. Tell me on the gauge when you close that, what is the reading? If it's 10, then the unit is functioning properly, right? But that tells us if you close that and it's 10 and you open it back up and it all drops, is I have a leak somewhere after this, right? Make sure your Y strainer's closed. But after that, now we're onto the system, okay? Common culprits, the FDIC connection, you could be losing some air there. You might have to cap those. There, you got to kind of think about your system and your design. Where could I be losing the air? You could also have a blockage, which we briefly touched on, and it could be in the system. So if you get to some area of the system, I was getting suction on the northeast corner. When I go to the southwest corner, all of a sudden there's no suction. Well, could there be a blockage somewhere? Or God forbid, we've seen it where someone just didn't even connect a pipe. I mean, you guys have probably all seen on social media where stuff's just not even connected. So that would be a common culprit for if I'm not getting suction there. Again, we talked about 10 foot all day long, 20 foot. There are limitations, just like any tool. I'd always say you're not going to go to Home Depot and find a saw to cut diamonds. It's just every tool's got its limitations. But have people done 20 foot? Yeah, just go slow, rock it a bunch. And I would still recommend myself a safety net, but 10 foot all day long. You may be asking again some other calls. Again, if I am in Minnesota or somewhere else where it's really cold and I'm going to store this outside, is there anything I have to worry about? I already talked about once, you're going to drain the water from this drum, make sure it doesn't freeze there. The only other concern you have is this vacuum gauge. A little bit of glycerin in there. I think it's either 10 or -10. That glycerin will actually freeze. So you got some, if you're just in a little bit of cold climate, you'll be okay. But if you're going to have this outside in some freezing weather, some negative weather, just pop this gauge off and take that with you, just to make sure that doesn't freeze and break on you. Sometimes we'll get, customer will call and say, hey, I don't just have air shooting out of my muffler, I have something else, right? So the first question is, well, you feel it, it feels like oil. Okay, have you drained your muffler, right? Did that raise too high? No, it feels like water. Maybe it's even shooting out the back. Well, how the heck did that happen? All right. Common culprits, again, we're going to look at this pump. It's all going to be surrounding the pump. So air and water that go in gets captured in the drum. The pump is what takes care of the water. If the pump can't take care of the water, it's going to overfill. And then all of a sudden that water is going to be sucked up by the vacuum. If that happens, we question, well, why isn't the pump kicking on? We can talk about age, but a lot of these parts are very reliable. The first step I would do if you have that issue, put your hand over the discharge side. Do you feel suction there? If you tell me, yeah, Grant, I feel suction there. Well, you shouldn't. This is the discharge side. We want all the suction off the other side. If I feel suction there, then we're looking at your check valve, right? This check valve is what's designed to keep, when it's not discharging, it's supposed to close and form that seal. If it's not forming, again, this check valve, depending on how much you guys use it, you should use this on every job. How much you use it, that poor check valve is opening and closing, could be tens to hundreds of thousands of times in its lifespan. It can foul over time and you may have to replace that. We do offer these replacement parts, but a lot of this as well you can get from a hardware store. If you do replace that check valve and it's not from us, just be careful, make sure you get the swing check valve. Do not do the plunger. That will actually, if you have the plunger in the way, it'll impede the flow. You won't get as much flow out of it. which is the second reason we can have an overfilled drum. We're not discharging as much as we're sucking in. We look at the check valve, is anything blocking it there? We look at, has the float fell off, right? That could happen. I talked about that if you leave water in it. So that's just some common troubleshooting steps as well. So we've kind of ran through the gamut. I've showed it how it works, just very crudely on that demo there. I went through all the features of the unit, went through the basic maintenance, and then we went through some common troubleshooting. We'll open up for questions here, and as you start to type in your questions or think of them, let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? I'm sure all of you guys, maybe you're convinced by now. How much is it, Grant? Right? The DM12 right now at MSRP is $8,000. Okay. Now you're probably thinking, boy, that's a heck of a lot of money. It is, but think about how much time this is going to save you. All right. All the hassle, some owners will say this is the best employee they got. Think about how much time it's going to save you over it. And you might be thinking, Grant, I get it, but my owner, that ain't going to be enough for it. Well, a lot of times I'll also remind guys, look, a lot of people are paying for this on the next bid that they need it. You get a school district, you got maybe some place where they just, look, I cannot have any water. I got a solution for you. You throw it on the bid there, maybe a couple other bids, depending on what the customer's appetite is. That's how a lot of customers are paying for this. They find jobs that need it, and then it's theirs every job thereafter. We also sell, I hadn't touched on briefly again while you're getting on your questions, a carrier. Jenny, do you mind turning your camera back on? I'll go back over to the carrier. If you can see in this shot here, we do sell a carrier for us. The unit is about 180 pounds. Let me switch to this side so you can see me. It's about 180 pounds. If you don't want to lift that up into your vans, some guys want to. We do sell a carrier, goes in a 2-inch hitch receiver. Got the ramp here so you can easily get it up onto it. And then it has 2 connections. All DM12s had it and DM25s have it as well. Some hooks to help capture it and keep it secure on the unit. This also does come with a cover. Think of it like a canvas, a grill cover that will cover the unit and transport as well. Just keep it from debris and keep it hidden. Yeah, so let's open it up for questions. I can bop back over here to my demo. I can go in front of the unit. Do you have any questions yet, Jenny?
I don't have any questions yet. I'm wondering if anybody missed the beginning and needs to see any part of the demo again. Maybe put that through the chat and got some interest in that.
Why don't I run it?
We could do that again.
Yeah, again, if you own one, ask, hey, I had this issue, or hey, it's worked great. Let everyone else in the chat, it's worked great. If you haven't seen it before, I'm going to run through the demo. If you just hopped in, feel free to ask any questions. So again, I'm going to turn this on. Hopefully the microphone does its job and it's canceling out the noise, but it's not too loud when you need hearing protection. I need to refill my drop. So in my demo here, it's sucking water from my drum that's back here. It's all going through the system, and then the unit is discharging it right back into my drum. So it's a closed system for my demo. I filled my drum. I'm going to close this valve. Now I have my vacuum that I want now. You can already see again, I didn't tighten this very tight. You see all the air bubbles? I hope that's coming through. See it there. Again, you pull it. In the video, you can see all that glue going up. Once you get to the end, just rock it a few times and then pull it off at an angle. You don't need to do a sharp angle, but that angle makes sure I have no water there. Let me show you once if you don't do it at an angle what happens. I have a little bit of water that fell back down because it hadn't dried yet. If I just go to the bottom and I pull it straight down, the air is going to go by the sprinkler, and that water that's in the sprinkler is going to remain. So if I go straight down, that's hard for me to do. I'm so trained. There we go. Now, if I pull it, now there's a little bit of water on my hand. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So that's what happens if you pull it straight down, which is why we say do it at an angle. And then if you do it at an angle, the air is able to pull that water with it, and then you have nothing. Like I said, it helps with smell too. Some offices complain after you do all that work, like, oh, it stinks for a little bit, right? Well, that'll also, the vacuum not only for water, it'll also keep the smell in it as well. Which again, where you can bid it on jobs. Hey, you don't want to have any mess, no smell. You want me to do this quicker? I have the tool that can do that. Helps you stay competitive with other bids that are out there that are. I'll turn this back off just in case it's going while people are listening. But yeah, that's
a question coming in.
Go ahead.
From Sean, if the float becomes dislodged or you believe there is a lot of debris inside the barrel, how do you reattach the float or clean/rinse out the barrel?
Yeah, you would have to take the barrel off. So I would say give our tech support a call. They can walk you through it. You can also send it back. We offer repair services and parts. But if the float has just fallen off, we would just, you guys are all contractors. You could very well handle this. It's 4 bolts on the safety cage. Then you pull up the green. There's a vacuum hose underneath it. Pull the drum out, open it up, and the float is just basically a peg that sits in there. You just need to put it back. But I can't recommend it enough. Avoid all that by just draining your system. Again, we could have gone with a fixed float where, hey, it's permanent, it's never falling out. The downside there is if a guy does not drain his system and it is enough force, it can actually damage it and break the float. So that's why there's that design as a safety guard. Don't get me wrong, all the things I talked about today, like the float falling off and a few other things, very, very rare occurrences, okay? But I'm just walking you through, here's how to maintain the tool you buy. And you should treat this really as just another tool in your toolbox. I like to think of it kind of like your guys' pipe threaders, right? You think of like a rigid 300 or something, right? That costs a pretty penny, but everyone swears by it. Like this thing is going to save you a lot of time, right? It just works, it's efficient. It's a very similar tool in that regard. Hey, it's going to save you a lot of time, right? And a lot of hassle. So yeah, if it falls off, how to do it, call our tech support. Again, I know you guys are going to, I can do it myself. Just utilize, that's why we're there. It's 24/7. It's in America. The tech support, if you call, is actually Jerry, who used to own the business. I think, Jenny, you mentioned at the beginning that we acquired this in 2023. So a little over 2 years ago from Jerry. Just a good fit with our business. And I should mention that's a perfect segue. What is, our normal business or our main business was not always the Dropmaster, right? We are a laboratory. If you look up Dying Fire Protection Labs, we specialize, our biggest service is the testing of these sprinkler heads. And we had a slide, if you came in early in the waiting room, about the frequency these need to be tested. We can briefly touch on that if you don't mind, if you have a few seconds. So these sprinklers, right, this one here is a quick response. Doesn't matter the brand, but it's a quick response. Let's say it was in our office here, and there is a quick response right above me. That sprinkler there is due. We just installed it. We moved into this facility in July. That one's due in 25 years. Great, right? Most people, okay, don't need to worry about it. That does mean in 25 years, someone's got to worry about it. Someone's got to know, right? So you do your floor level inspections every year. But when you get to the 25-year mark, like, hey, this is due for either replacement or testing. A lot of building owners will choose replacement, or excuse me, will choose testing because it's a lot more cost effective versus replacing everything in the building. If they choose to test, you just need to take a sample down for 1% of your area. And you need to take that down. In this case, if I don't use a Dropmaster, I'm gonna have all that water on me. We got a nice video on YouTube, a little promo video of me actually pulling a sprinkler down. It's running down my backside. I got all this black water, right? You guys know this. It's a pain in the butt. So the Dropmaster is just there, why we acquired it, to make sampling these sprinklers even easier. But it can also do more. Again, people use it for repairs. Talked about if you have a main or a branch line, you need, like, I just want to make sure this is dry. I don't want to cut into this and I got all this water falling out. Hook up, drain the system like normal. Always drain it like normal. I should emphasize that. This is designed to be sucked in, everything about it. It's not designed to be pushed out. So do not connect, and we've seen it, connect it to the system under city pressure and open it up, right? Boom, it'll be like popcorn. May not destroy it, but the lid will actually have popped up. And then what happens there is maybe I don't have the seal I need anymore for that vacuum. But use that vacuum, let it dry the system if you need to. But yeah, testing is really where it comes in handy. Any more questions?
Yep, Alfonso's asking, I need to drain a whole system to replace a riser. I'm working at a base and they require us to capture all the water in totes.
Mm-hmm.
Can I use the Dropmaster to capture all the water?
Sure, yep. Again, the Dropmaster, as the water gets captured in the drum, when that drum fills, it's only 10 gallons, but it can do any size system. But as that drum fills, it's going to discharge out of that 20-foot hose. Where you put that hose is up to you. If you want to put it in totes, by all means, put it in totes. So that's what I would do if I had to capture it, is I'd put it in maybe a 350-gallon tote. If you need more than that, have a second tote there, and as it fills up, you just want to transfer it. But yes, by all means, that would help capture it. But again, when you turn it on, it's not going to suck all the water out for you. You have to open up, like again, go open a FAR sprinkler, pull that one off, and then again, let the air go through it. It's all about airflow that actually takes the water with it. But yes, that would be a good use for it. We've seen it too with capturing, we haven't really dabbled too much outside the sprinkler industry, but I know some building owners have bought it for, I think, cooling towers or radiators, just anywhere you need to suck liquid. I've even heard of it with foam systems. Again, we also test foam concentrate. Can it do it? Yes, I would just recommend you rinse it when you're done. So as we start to get into some, I guess more exotic, for lack of a better word, chemicals, we just don't want those chemicals to sit, especially in the pump inside, and wear down anything. Again, not knowing what you're getting into, but if it is going to be used for chemical, I would say just give it a drink of water when you're done. So what that means is just take that suction line, that hose, disconnect it, put it in a bucket of water. That's a good way too to test the unit if you ever need to test it for some reason before you go live with it. Put it in a bucket of water. You're going to need more than about 5-6 gallons to keep the float on to get it that high. But put it in there, let it discharge, make sure it's working.
Good question.
The others?
Jason's asking, is there any chance on sucking gaskets on things like the old Victaulic fit fittings?
No, that's why we set them at 10. Again, if you got enough vacuum, yeah, but this is well below. We have the safety factors needed in there. So no, we should be good. Common question that'll also come up is, can I use it on CPVC? Yeah, by all means, yep, it can be used for there as well. If I turn it back on, if you don't mind, I'm gonna turn it once more. Let me show you. It's powerful, but it's not gonna destroy anything. You've seen it suck the water out several times. It's powerful enough. Guys always get a kick out of this. You can actually, right, it'll hold the sprinkler there upside down. You can put your hands on it. It's not going to harm you. Now, if you left your hand for a long time, you're going to give yourself a hickey, but it's not going to harm you. So if I left this with a little bit of water in there, if I left it for a few minutes, all that water would dry out. You can already see there, I put the sprinkler back on. I put it back on, and already in that little bit, all that water is gone from in there. But that's another good question. So would it destroy something? No, but that is again why we set the unit at the factory under 10. We have that warning on there. Again, we put the regulator behind the safety cage for that reason. Guys will ask too, I know like the government, when they were looking at it, inquired about, hey, what happens if it fails? Is it going to be a danger? Well, no, you got to remember, this is not pressure, this is a vacuum, right? When something goes wrong or a gauge fails, it's not going to explode on you. If anything, it would implode, but like the gauge, if that fails, you're just not going to have any vacuum, right? It's not going to damage anything in the unit. The spring inside there wears down, it gets poor, then you just need to replace the gauge. But good question. But again, that is something the Victaulic couplings can suck it out, yes, but at a much higher vacuum.
Alonso's asking from the previous question, so I can
Yeah.
open inspector's test valve instead of removing a head.
Yeah, it's all about where, again, the bigger opening you give for this, the better it'll work, because it's the more airflow you can get through it. But anything will work. You just have to think about, where am I trying to dry? And is that in between wherever I open, like again, auxiliary drain, a test valve, and wherever the unit is. So again, if you're going to do something and the unit's right next to where a test port is, or the FDIC connection that could be sucking air in, it's only going to dry. It's going to take the path of least resistance. So that's why I say, if in my building, if I'm on this corner, I'm going to open, that's where my riser room is, why I'm pointing down there. If I go all the way to the other end of the building and pull a sprinkler, now I know the air has to travel all this way. But again, if I open a sprinkler down there, it's not going to have to go that far. And it'll just dry. Again, it's going to take the path of least resistance.
Looks like we don't have any more questions coming in. If anybody has one, feel free to type them in.
Yeah, and then if you're not comfortable asking it here, I know some guys aren't, or we just didn't get to it for some reason, we'll stick around for a little bit more. But Jenny will throw up a slide again with our contact info. You can always contact myself. Jerry, again, technical support, and he is, I mean, he's taken my call in the deer stand before. He's been whispering, but he is there to help you, and that's why we love him, why we have him. So utilize that. If there's any questions, you're on a job site. He's had calls at 2 a.m. You're stuck in a Walmart. They locked you in. He'll answer that call, and you got a question. Hey, I just want to know, is this going to do this, or can I do this? Guys have gotten very creative with how they use it. We're here to help. I saw another question come through.
Yeah, Dustin's asking, is there a warranty?
Yes, yeah, there's a 1-year warranty. You know, typically that's just on the craftsmanship and the motor and the pump. Yeah, and since we've owned it since 2023, I can count on one hand the number of warranty claims. But things do happen. I get like the motor, we could get a bad batch of motors, but that is also goes through rigorous testing here. We always put this thing through its paces before we send it out, and we catch most of those issues if a manufacturer's giving us a bad motor. But yeah, there is a 1-year warranty that comes with it.
And as Grant said, utilize that video we have on our website. I'll also send a link with that following in my follow-up communications. If you need to share that with your manager, your service manager, your purchasing person to help convince them that you would really like one of these in the field, that's a good resource or a good thing to show them. And also there'll be a recording of the video so they can also watch this on playback. So feel free to share that.
Again, questioning on, really need this. Look, it's going to save you a bunch of time and hassle, right? You in the field, you know it, but if you got to convince an owner, look, it's going to save you a bunch of labor when you bid this job. It's no longer going to take me X number of hours, it'll take me less. And then, by the way, the customer is willing to help pay for this because they don't want the mess. They don't want the smell. They want to be sure, hey, there's going to be no water damage. And that's how most people are paying for it. And again, then once it's yours every job thereafter, and it's going to last you a long time. Even the steel version, we get 2012, they're still kicking out in the wild. 2012 is when it came out. And this now new stainless steel model that just came out is going to last even longer. It was really born from a lot of customers. Maybe you're in like the Bay down south, somewhere with salt water, right? We do everything we can with the steel version to limit the corrosion. We paint it, we plastic coat it. But even in those really harsh environments, that wasn't enough. So we did it for those environments. But then we thought, well, let's just roll it out to all. It is a better product. It's going to last you a lot longer. So it's available now.
Yeah, I threw our phone number out and our email address. That's how you get a hold of us for an order. And I can also share some more information here at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our customer service staff has gotten quite a few inquiries for this type of thing. So give us a call. We can help you out with answering questions on it. And our pricing is showing here, as Grant stated on the, while he was doing the demo there.
Yeah, so if you're interested, just dropmaster.sales@nfpaglobal.com. We are, if you're not familiar, an NFPA Global Solutions company. So Dyne Fire Protection Labs, I briefly talked, we're a laboratory. We specialize in NFPA 25 lab tests. So as you guys are going out in the field and doing all this NFPA 25 work, the inspection, testing, and maintenance of these water-based systems, once in a great while, you come to a line that says, oh, I can't do it. I got to send to a lab. That's where we come in. That's really what we're here for. We don't go out in the field. We don't take samples. We rely on customers like yourself to go out and take the samples. You're doing a big list of things, right? We're just there for those couple things that you need a lab. NFPA Global Solutions was created in 2024. That is, as you're familiar, you guys all know NFPA, the nonprofit. NFPA Global Solutions is a separate entity, fully owned though by the nonprofit, but it is a for-profit entity, NFPA Global Solutions. What all that means is essentially, look, all the profits we generate on this side of the business, Dyne being one of them, they're also another company, and some organic services NFPA Global Solutions offers. All of the profits we generate go to fund the NFPA mission. So I don't know if that helps you sleep at night as well, but when you work with us or buy from us, any money we make off it does go to NFPA to do the research and promote what you guys do, make those standards that govern what you guys do. Yeah, so I just want to mention that too. If you say, what is NFPA Global Solutions?
I will send a follow-up email with the recording and PDF of the slides and a survey. We welcome all input on future webinar topics. I know we're going to be sitting down and talking about the 2026 webinar schedule soon. So if there's something you want to know about, you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you. If we don't have any other questions, then we'll maybe call it there. And again, Jenny, do you mind putting one last slide up? Dropmaster.sales@nfpaglobal.com to order. She'll also throw up, you can ask questions there. There's our phone numbers on that screen. if you got any questions, again, I know some guys aren't willing to ask on something like this. You can always send it to email. My email, if you need, is just my first name and then my last name at nfpaglobal.com. Thank you.
The certificates of participation will be sent either later today or tomorrow. Someone just asked that question. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in 2026.